Hi there, my name is Kronenberg and welcome to my channel. This is a film review of Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace. It's a crime suspense film. Came out in 1962. Amazon is 13+, IMDb is a 12. An hour and 26 minutes. Amazon is 3.3 out of 5, IMDb is 5.4 out of 10. They're both the same, so it is Sherlock Holmes and Watson do battle with their nemesis, Professor Moriarty, over an ancient necklace attributed to Cleopatra. So the director is Terence Fisher, who directed The Gorgon. FYI, if you've ever seen any Hammer films, or usually Hammer horror films, he is the main director, and I absolutely love Hammer films. They're one of my favourite styles. Anyway, there you go. Producer, well, there's two of them, but with producer on, we have Arthur, A-R-T-U-R, Brauner, B-R-A-U-N-E-R, who produced Europa. Music was by Martin Slavin, who did the music for Once Upon a Girl. The cast, we have Christopher Lee, who was Sherlock Holmes, who was in The Wicker Man. Thorley Walters, who was Dr. Watson, was in Murder, She Said. Hans Nielsen, who was Inspector Cooper, who was in Titanic. Hans Schonker, who was Professor Moriarty, who was in Der Mustergat. Senta Berger, who was Ellen Blackburn, who was in the series Under Suspicion. And Ivan Desney, who was Paul King, who was in The Wrong Move. It was filmed in Dublin, in Ireland, Spandau in Berlin, in Germany, and London, England, UK. It's also known as Sherlock Holmes and the Necklace of Death and Valley of Fear. Now, one trivia I got it from Wikipedia, purely because I was trying to figure out what it was based on when I was watching it. You'll understand what I mean. So it says, Fisher, which is obviously the director, and Lee, Christopher Lee, were not happy with the film. I can understand why, to be honest. Fisher calls it a film well worth left alone, and Lee said of it, "I think it was a pity. This film, in more ways than one. We should never have made it in Germany with German actors, although we had a British art director and a British director. It was a hodgepodge of stories put together by the German producers who ruined it. My portrayal of Holmes is, I think, one of the best things I've ever done because I tried to play him really as he was written, as a very intolerant, argumentative, difficult man, and I looked extraordinarily like him with the makeup. Everyone who's seen it said I was like Holmes as any actor they've seen both in appearance and interpretation." Well, that might be true in that way, but my favourite actor of all time for Sherlock Holmes is Basil Rathbone. I'm sorry, I just love the guy. He's fantastic. With Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. I've got the box set, so that's why I'm a bit biased. Now, it starts, obviously black and white. It starts with a photo of people and orchestral music with credits. That photo is actually part of the film. It's just like a still. I didn't realise it. And then I was like, is it a German film? Because at the beginning it's like it says, it's there's loads of German names. And then it says German export. And then it says at the very towards the end of it, it says English translation. I was like, what the hell? In fact, let me just scroll down a minute. There was something I wanted to read on the actual. I'll get the wording for it when I'm just talking here briefly. I'm going to go into IMDb because there's something I definitely wanted to mention. Yeah, there it is. So we're at this port, and there's loads of kids running by. And they're excited over a floating log or something, throwing stones at it. Sort of asking the local fisherman to bring it in, and he doesn't sort of tell them to, bugger off. It's quite enjoyable watching them because, I mean, nowadays you don't see kids running. Well, you do if they're running after somebody. But you don't see them sort of saying, "Oh, look, a log," and then throwing stones at it. It's just like, I don't think most kids would get excited over a log floating in a river or a sea, asking the local fisherman who would obligingly go, "Okay then," and just literally just go for it. It's how times have changed, I suppose. It turns out not to be a log either. It was a body, but I was like, I had to zoom in. I had to pause and come back a few times. Like, well, how do I know it's a body? I mean, I think I guessed because it was a jersey, but that was really pushing it. I couldn't see a head or anything. But they're like, oh! It's like, oh, okay. So Watson kind of looks good. like again, I'm so used to Nigel Bruce, so I was like, what's he look like? Who's Watson? And he kind of looked okay. He looked the part. He's not got top billing though. When you go into IMDb, you're like scrolling down, going, where is he? Even if you go to the full cast and crew, in credits order, right? Dr. Watson, who is Thorley Walters, appears 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's well down at the bottom in the credits. Well down. And you would assume that Watson would be up next to Sherlock Holmes, but no. And he talks a lot. It's not like he's just sort of a bit actor. He's all the way through it. But you've got people like a doctor, Johnny, Times librarian, a Texas collector, a butler. They're all above him. It's kind of like, what the hell? Now, I love how Holmes fooled Watson into thinking he was a random dying person in the street. Of course, he carried him into his flat like you do. But that was quite funny watching that. Obviously, there's the to and fro that Holmes and Watson tend to have. Holmes is usually quite, straightforward, and Watson's usually a bit of a bumbler. That's the way it always is. And Holmes is looking at the paper. Right? I think it's the Times. Well, it is the Times. And he's asking Watson, what's the purpose of the Times newspaper? And he goes, why? To supply information. He went, exactly. Also to advertise. That's why they're all on the front, so that you read them and not anything important like the actual news. And I thought, yeah, that's not changed. Then he says, now, after the advertisements, what is the next important thing? And he went, oh, the sports page. And he went, brilliant, Watson. The weather, the arts, the news, the shipping news. In other words, you're wrong. It's just the way he just looked at him. Like, I liked that. It was kind of good. Now, at this point, I was thinking it was dubbed, but I was unsure. Because Christopher Lee, it looked like he was speaking English, but the voice didn't sort of match. And then when you actually scroll down in IMDb and you get to the bottom of the rest of the cast list alphabetically, towards the bottom is Sherlock Holmes' voice. Now, that might be in I don't know. Maybe that's who it was. He did the voice for Sherlock Holmes, but it makes no sense because if he was English, what's the point? You know what I mean? It just didn't make any sense. But that's beside the point. I have no idea. I was confused. Now, the main police officer was called Cooper, but he's not. He's Lestrade. At least it was in the series that I've watched. Maybe he's. I can't see him being Cooper in bloody Charles Donan, or whatever his name is, Conan, or whatever his name is, the guy that wrote it. So, you want to know what people are talking about in a room? Like, I want to know what they're saying in that room. So, do you listen to the walls? Because they're quite thin. Maybe you listen at the door with a, cupped hand, thinking, can I hear them? Or do you climb to the roof, locate the chimney pot, and listen in via the fireplace? Could do that nowadays, I don't think. Now, I saw this fight between a guy called Peter Blackburn and this random dude. I say fight, it was a bit lame. I saw somebody fighting with a hammer, and I was like, oh, come on, that's obviously rubber. So, obviously somebody died. And Watson said, his head is completely shattered, close range with a shot. And I was like, and then he replaced this rug, and I was like, hang on a minute, there's no blood. Where's the blood? Because this is how it was in those old films. When you see somebody getting shot in the stomach, and it went, ugh, and then it got shot, you was never see any blood. Whereas nowadays you see blood all the time, but back in the old days, you didn't show blood. And it was quite funny watching Holmes giving side glances as Cooper was investigating, kind of like how Lestrade was doing it in the original ones. A bit bumbling, thinks he knows everything, and then Holmes is like, huh, you think you know? You don't. Cleopatra's necklace looks a bit crappy though, a bit gaudy. It's mostly Mel. It's like, surely there'd be some jewels on it. I won't kill for it, I can tell you that. Now, I think it's actually set in the 60s. I know it's filmed in the 60s, but I think it's actually set in the 60s, if you know what I mean. There's certain kind of vehicles and stuff that look like they're from the 60s, not from whenever it was filmed, or originally. I don't know when it was set in. Now, of course, I love when they use the same extras. So Holmes was in the street, and this woman walked by with this striking type of hat and skirt sort of stuff. It was the hat was specific, you can tell. And then he gets a cab and he drives off somewhere completely different and gets out. And at the same time, the same woman walks by with the exact same clothing, the exact same hat. And it's like, yeah, you may have wanted to maybe change your clothes a little bit. I spotted it. And there's an interesting way to throw a knife. It's not by hand, but by a walking stick handle. It was interesting. The sewers. Splashing around in the water, touching the sides, falling into it, maybe having a drink. And this is back then, remember? I'm pretty sure the sewers weren't exactly great. They're not great now, but, they weren't exactly good. Now, I'm not sure about the film. It was a bit slow in parts, but overall it was okay. Sherlock and Watson were good. Not so sure of some of the others. Even Moriarty didn't really grab me. But I'm going to give it a 5. I'll be quite generous, I think. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed watching and listening to this film review of Sherlock Holmes and the Deadly Necklace. Please subscribe to my channel. I've got plenty of other film reviews. I've done some black and whites. You might be able to find something there you like. But there you go. Maybe leave a comment below. Have you seen this film? Did you like the fact that it was dubbed? I'm certain that Christopher Lee didn't sound like that, because we all know what he sounds like in the old Hammer films and also as Gandalf. Guess that's him. Not Gandalf. It was the other dude, wasn't he? He was the one on top of that tower with that glowing ball. Saracen or Sacrosanct or whatever his name was. Him. I thought it was Gandalf. And Gandalf is the other guy, isn't it? God knows who Gandalf is. Or maybe it is. Who knows? He's in it anyway. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed watching that, like I say. Give me the old thumbs up. And there you go. Okay, thank you and goodbye.